Good evening, parents and faculty. My name is Christine Grant, and I'm the media specialist at any elementary school. Some of our test scores are not where we need them to be, and it is something that we have been struggling with for several years since No Child Left Behind was passed. Because there has been such an emphasis in our schools on showing good test scores, we have begun teaching the test. Unfortunately, that tactic does not seem to be working the way that we had intended, as test scores have not been raised significantly. I think that now is the time to make a change in the way that we teach and turn our focus and our attention back to information literacy. Tonight, I would like to talk to all of you about an information literacy approach called guided inquiry. Guided inquiry learning was developed by Carol Colthow. She suggested that guided inquiry is a perspective on learning rather than a formula for teaching. Guided inquiry requires much more from students than learning a test or writing a bunch of words to fill a page. It is project-focused, where students gain a sense of their own learning process by successfully pursuing a project from start to finish. It is a way of teaching that lets students learn on their own while still adhering to some guidelines. The skills that they learn during the process can be used over and over again. And isn't that what we all desire from education? There are basically 4 steps in guided inquiry. In guided learning, teachers initiate a project. This is not as rigid as most of us are used to, where a teacher says everyone needs to write down 500 words on the Outer Banks. Instead, during step 2, which is called selection, students select the project that they will work on, fitting within the parameters of the topic. So if the topic is the Outer Banks, perhaps they can make a diorama of the Outer Banks or a video documentary or any of a million different other ideas that would fulfill the Outer Banks topic. The point is for the child to learn more about the topic in a way that appeals to him or her, thus fostering learning. It doesn't really matter how the learning occurs as long as it does occur. In the 3rd step, called exploration, students look for information about the topic and explore their resources. And then in step 4, they formulate it by putting all of the information that they have found and establishing their topic and producing a presentation or a report or whatever final project they want to pursue. Now, another concept of guided inquiry learning is something that's called the 3rd space. I'm going to take a few minutes to explain the 3 spaces. Now, the first space focuses on the personal realm, where children basically use their personal experiences and their backgrounds to learn as they please. Now, as one would imagine, it might be difficult to maintain control in a classroom, or tricky to cover all of the topics required during the school year in the first space. Now, the second space is the opposite end of the spectrum, where this is teacher and curriculum based. This is not a space that the American public is unfamiliar with. We live there. We have spent so much time trying to teach the EOGs and not succeeding even at that children aren't learning. They're regurgitating information at best. Now, in the second space, the teacher is completely in charge and focuses all of the conversation. She asks a question, the children answer it. Knowing that children are not making the educational gains that we desire, we're starting to realize that this second space may not be the best area for learning. Fortunately, there is a middle ground, and that's where the 3rd space is. It's a mixture of the 2. Now, in the 3rd space, students bring in their personal experiences and backgrounds and use that in conjunction with what the teachers and school bring to the table. Now, this is an environment where students are encouraged to speak freely, and there is some equality between the teachers and the students. The 3rd space allows students the freedom to learn within parameters. It's really the best of both worlds. Now, one way that we can make sure that guided inquiry will work at our school is to create teams that include a librarian, a teacher, and another subject teacher. Working all together, we can formulate projects for the students more fully. and that's where I come in. It is vital that teachers work together and use the skills of the School Media Center librarian. I am here to help. And we can't forget the importance of the School Media Center. The Media Center can now be looked at as an inquiry lab. This is where students and teachers can come and get information that they need. It is available to students at any point during the day and after school as well. The School Media Center is not a place where people simply go to quickly get their books and leave, or sit quietly and do research or study. It's actually a place where they can go to learn, and they can do this either individually or in group settings. Talking is allowed. I realize that there may be some concerns about beginning this new way of learning, mostly because it's something new, and something new can always be a little bit scary. You may be wondering how the guided inquiry approach will provide students with the information that they need to meet curriculum standards. Certainly, curriculum standards must be met. Grades must be good. That is certainly part of the process. Guided inquiry is not a haphazard learning approach, but one whose integrated, overlapping, holistic learning can accomplish more over the course of a school year than attempting to address each standard on its own. We can use the inquiry concept through many of our subjects. Guided inquiry works in English by teaching children how to obtain, evaluate, and use information, but it also works with math, science, social studies, and other subjects. The guided inquiry approach works with a variety of subjects because at its core, it's just a way for children to learn how to get a more comprehensive look at the subjects that they're studying. And how is that bad? As we know, nothing is ever perfect, and no two students can learn in exactly the same way. In order to help students who may be having difficulty with guided inquiry, there are intervention strategies. These strategies are called the 6 C's. The 6 C's include collaborate, converse, continue, choose, chart, and compose. Before going into the 6 strategies, I do want to make very clear that students are not just sent out on their own with no help from teachers at all. This is not individual learning, but guided inquiry. So during collaborating, obviously that involves working with others. Conversing is discussing ideas and fleshing out concepts with others. Continuing is enriching one's understanding of the answers achieved. Choosing is basically picking which concepts the student wants to continue to learn about and research. Not everything that you find out is what you want to go towards your topic, so that part is actually very important. Charting is the visual presentation, and that could be an actual chart, a graph, or pictures to express the results more fully. And composing involves writing throughout the entire process instead of simply writing a final report at the end of your research. So it's not just learn, and then let me write this really long paper. It's learning throughout and writing down throughout the process. Now, what is so wonderful about guided inquiry is that it does not seek to answer questions, but to address questions. This approach teaches students to use resources and to search for answers, even if there is no definitive answer. And isn't that what life is like? There's not always a specific answer. It's not answering the question that's the goal, necessarily, but the journey that addressing the question produces. This system will aid students in the future, as their career endeavors will most likely involve addressing questions that don't have one simple answer. Basic inquiry abilities include the capability to recall, summarize, paraphrase, and extend. These abilities will compound as they are introduced to young students and expanded upon during their entire educational process. We cannot start guided inquiry too soon. The concepts taught in guided inquiry are not relegated to one grade or to one subject. The concepts taught expand to all subjects and to learning in general. Guided inquiry is a system whose time, I believe, has come. I hope that the administrators and the educators at this school and you parents will consider the guided inquiry approach and incorporate some of its strategies in our schools. If anyone has any questions, I'm free to speak with you about the process. Thank you very much.